Every morning at exactly 7:30 a.m., Clint Eastwood passed by a small, quiet house at the end of the street. The same time, the same street, and every single day, a little girl with bright, curious eyes and a wave so full of life would stand at the window, waving at him as he drove by. At first, Clint didn't think much of it. Just a friendly wave from a kid. Maybe she saw him on TV, maybe she was just being polite. But as the days turned into weeks, the wave became a routine. Clint began looking forward to it. Something about the simple gesture brought a spark of warmth to his day. It was a brief moment of connection, even though he didn't know her or her family. She was just a girl, living in a world that had passed him by. But then one morning he drove past and there was no wave. At first, Clint thought it was just a mistake. Maybe she hadn't seen him. But as he turned the corner and glanced in his rearview mirror, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He knew the area, knew the neighborhood like the back of his hand. But something about that missing wave stuck in his mind, tugging at him like a string. The feeling lingered, almost uncomfortable, as though his gut was telling him to do something he couldn't quite explain. He didn't know why it mattered. He didn't even know her name. But it was enough to make Clint do what he rarely ever did. He turned the truck around. Something wasn't right, and his instincts told him to follow them, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant the problem might be. As he pulled up in front of the house, Clint's heart began to race, a quiet unease building in his chest. He sat there for a moment staring at the house. The curtains were drawn and there was no sign of the little girl. "I'm probably overthinking it," he muttered to himself, but his gut told him otherwise. Clint didn't waste time with doubts. He got out of the truck and made his way toward the front door, determined to find out what was going on. Clint's boots crunched against the gravel driveway as he approached the front door. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. He knocked softly, but no answer came. Another knock, a little louder this time. Still nothing. His instincts told him something was off. The stillness of the house felt unsettling. Something wasn't right. Clint's eyes scanned the front yard, noting the lack of toys or bikes, the kind of signs that usually came with a child's presence. It was as if the house had been frozen in time, waiting for something to happen. After a long moment of hesitation, Clint decided to take action. He stepped around the side of the house where a small window offered a glimpse into the living room. He peered inside, hoping to catch a glimpse of the little girl. Maybe she was just sick or busy with something. But the living room was empty, the only thing visible being a few unopened mail packages piled up by the door. His gut told him that wasn't normal. He knew this street. This was a neighborhood where nothing went unnoticed. Everything was in its place, every morning like clockwork. So why was there a break in the pattern today? Just as Clint was about to turn back to his truck, he heard a faint sound coming from the backyard. He froze. A soft, almost inaudible cry, barely audible over the whisper of the wind. His heart skipped a beat, and without a second thought, Clint moved toward the sound, moving quietly but swiftly. As he rounded the corner of the house, he saw something that made his breath catch in his throat. There, sitting on the porch steps with her head bowed, was the little girl. She wasn't waving this time. She was crying, her small shoulders shaking. The sight of her distress hit Clint harder than he expected. He stepped forward, his voice gentle. "Hey, kiddo. You okay?" She looked up at him, her eyes red from tears, but she didn't speak. Instead, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and whispered, "I don't know where my mom is." Clint's heart sank. There was a lot more going on here than he realized, and his gut had been right all along. Something was wrong, and it was time to find out what. Clint knelt down, making himself less intimidating as he looked into the little girl's tear-filled eyes. "Where's your mom, sweetie?" he asked gently. She sniffed, wiping her nose on her sleeve. She's gone," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Clint felt a tightening in his chest. He couldn't imagine what it must be like for a young girl to go through something like this. He knew right away that this was no simple case of an argument or a misplaced phone. There was something much deeper here. "Where did she go?" Clint asked. his voice soft but firm. The little girl hesitated before answering, her voice shaky. "She left last night. She told me she'd be back in the morning, but she didn't come home." Clint's mind raced. He glanced at the house again, at the emptiness of it all, the unspoken tension that hung in the air. This wasn't just a missing parent, it was something more complicated, something that didn't make sense. Clint stood up, looking around. The neighborhood had a quiet, peaceful feel to it, but now that feeling seemed off, like a shadow looming over the place. "All right, I'm going to help you find her," Clint said, his tone assuring, despite the concern gnawing at him. He extended his hand, and after a moment of hesitation, the little girl took it, her small hand gripping his with an intensity that surprised him. "Don't worry, we're going to find your mom," Clint added, his mind already going through possible scenarios. The first step was to search the neighborhood, to see if anyone had seen anything out of the ordinary. As they made their way through the quiet streets, Clint felt a growing sense of urgency. Whoever had caused this, Clint was certain they wouldn't just let this situation resolve itself. He could feel that something was building beneath the surface, something that would require more than just a casual search. The little girl stayed close to him, her eyes constantly darting around as if she were afraid someone might be watching them. Clint looked down at her, his face hardening. He wasn't about to let anything happen to her, not on his watch. He had no idea what he was walking into, but whatever it was, he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to leave until he found answers. As Clint and the little girl walked through the neighborhood, Clint's mind was working overtime, piecing together the fragments of the puzzle. The area was peaceful, too peaceful. There were no obvious signs of trouble, but something in the air felt heavy. It wasn't until they reached the edge of the neighborhood that Clint saw something strange. A car parked on the corner, hidden from view by the thick trees lining the street. The car looked familiar, but Clint couldn't place it immediately. It was old, with a few dents in the side, but something about it stood out. Clint's instincts screamed at him, telling him to be cautious. He motioned for the girl to stay behind him as he approached the car slowly, his eyes scanning for anything unusual. The windows were tinted, so Clint couldn't see inside. He stood still for a moment, considering his options. His gut told him this was connected to whatever had happened to the girl's mother. He had to check it out. With a quiet sigh, he walked up to the driver's side and peered inside, his heart pounding in his chest. What he saw made his blood run cold. A woman's purse, scattered papers, and a phone on the passenger seat. But there was something else, something that made him freeze. A letter, crumpled and torn, wedged between the seat and the door. Clint pulled it out, smoothing it open. The letter was written in messy handwriting, almost frantic. It was short, but the words jumped off the page. "If you don't stop looking, there will be consequences. Leave now, or else." Clint's jaw clenched. This wasn't a random incident. This was serious, and someone was threatening the little girl's mother. Without wasting another second, Clint turned back toward the girl, who was watching him anxiously from a distance. "We need to go inside," he said, his voice firm but calm. The little girl nodded, sensing the urgency in his tone. As they walked back toward her house, Clint's mind raced. Whoever had written that letter wasn't going to stop, and now Clint had a target on his back too. But he didn't care. He had to protect this girl, and he wasn't going to stop until he found her mother. Whatever it took, Clint didn't waste any time. As soon as they were back inside the little girl's home, he grabbed his phone and began dialing numbers. His first call was to an old contact of his, someone who worked in local law enforcement. Clint knew the importance of keeping the authorities in the loop, but he also knew that sometimes you had to take matters into your own hands. "I need your help," Clint said, his voice low and urgent. "There's a missing person, and I've got a bad feeling about this." He quickly filled his contact in on the details, including the mysterious letter in the parked car. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew that something big was going down, and fast. As Clint hung up, the little girl sat quietly at the kitchen table, her eyes wide, her hands nervously twisting in her lap. "Clint, what's going to happen now?" she asked, her voice trembling. Clint sat down next to her, his face softening. "We're going to find your mom," he reassured her, putting a hand on her shoulder. "I promise you." Just then, Clint's phone buzzed. It was a text from his contact. "Check the old mill by the river. We think that's where they're holding her." Clint's heart skipped a beat. The old mill was a forgotten part of the town, nothing more than a relic of the past. It was the perfect place to hide something, or someone. He stood up, his face hardening with determination. "Stay here, kid. I'm going to bring your mom back." As Clint headed out the door, he felt that familiar weight in his chest. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was personal. He wasn't going to let some coward hurt an innocent person. Not while he could do something about it. With the little girl's hopeful eyes behind him, Clint drove straight to the old mill, his mind sharp and focused. The darkness of the riverbank surrounded him as he arrived, the air heavy with the scent of old wood and stagnant water. He parked his truck a distance away, his eyes scanning the area. The mill stood in the distance, a dark silhouette against the night sky. He could feel the tension, the quiet before the storm. Clint didn't hesitate. He moved quickly, blending into the shadows as he approached the mill. He had no idea what he was walking into, but he knew one thing. He wasn't leaving without that little girl's mom. As he got closer, he could hear voices, low murmurs, tense and menacing. Clint's grip tightened on the flashlight in his hand. He was ready for whatever came next. Please subscribe channel for Clint Eastwood respect. Thanks.